You're not loud. You never have been. And your entire life, the world has made you pay for it. Not with cruelty, with something worse, with dismissal. Your ideas repeated by louder men and credited to them. Your reads on people more accurate than anyone in the room and nobody asking. Your silence mistaken for having nothing to say. And somewhere along the way, you accepted the story they handed you. That you were the problem. Here's what that story cost you, and who benefits from you still believing it. Because a man who finally understands his own power is a man nobody can control anymore. Stay. They told you that you were the problem. Too quiet, too sensitive, doesn't speak up, hard to read. You heard it from teachers, coaches, fathers who mistook silence for weakness, from a world built by loud men that decided anyone who didn't perform that way was broken. So you tried. You forced the small talk. You filled the silence with noise because that's what they told you power looked like. And it never fit, because it was never yours. Here's what nobody told you. The most dangerous man in any room is rarely the loudest one. He's the one who hasn't spoken yet. Machiavelli, the man history called a monster, whose book the Catholic Church banned, was not a warlord, not a conqueror, not an extrovert commanding armies. He was an observer, a quiet man who sat in the margins of power and understood it more deeply than every king and general he ever studied. He said almost nothing, and then wrote words so precise that rulers used them in secret for 500 years, while publicly calling them evil. Sound familiar? You were never missing the tools for power. You were handed the wrong blueprint, and I'm going to show you exactly what the real one says. Not the sanitized version, the brutal version, the one they hoped you'd never find. Think about the last room you walked into where someone talked over you. Hold that, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly what you should have done, and you'll never let it happen again. Rule 1. Your silence is not a weakness. It's a weapon they don't know you're holding. Every room you've ever walked into, someone made an assumption about you. Quiet, passive, harmless. They talked over you, underestimated your read on the situation, filed you under not a threat and moved on. And you felt it. That low burn of being dismissed before you even opened your mouth. Here's the brutal truth you weren't ready to hear. You've been letting that feeling make you smaller, apologizing for the very thing that makes you lethal. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. People react to what they see, not what's actually there. And what they see when they look at you is someone who won't fight back. That's not a liability. That's a weapon you haven't learned to aim yet. Every time you stay quiet in a room, they expose themselves. They talk too much, reveal their insecurities, their alliances, their fears. They hand you information they'd never give a man they considered dangerous. They're not ignoring you. They're confessing to you. The extrovert performs power. He announces it. He needs the room to confirm it exists. You don't perform, you accumulate. And by the time you speak, once, precisely, with everything you've observed loaded behind it, the room shifts. They don't know why. They just know the quiet man changed something. That's the fox seeing the trap before the lion even smells it. Stop apologizing for your silence. Start weaponizing it. Here's what nobody talks about. The extrovert's biggest weakness is the same thing he thinks is his strength. And once you see it, you'll understand why you've been winning this entire time without knowing it. Rule 2. The world punished you for thinking before you spoke. Machiavelli called that the rarest form of intelligence. You've been in this situation your whole life. Someone says a half-formed thought out loud. The room nods. It becomes consensus. Meanwhile, your fully formed answer stayed locked in your head because you were still refining it. You walked away, angry, not at them, at yourself. Too slow, too hesitant, too internal. I'm calling that out right now because it's a lie you've been telling yourself, and it has cost you. You weren't too slow. You were too thorough for a world that rewards noise over accuracy. Machiavelli studied princes who ruled impulsively and princes who ruled with patience. The impulsive ones made faster decisions and died faster deaths. The patient ones, the ones who observed, calculated, and moved only when the moment was exactly right, those are the ones history remembered. He wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps. Only the fox can do that. Your mind is a fox. It has always been a fox. You see what others miss because you're watching when they're performing. But here's where it turns brutal. You've been using that intelligence defensively, to protect yourself, to avoid conflict, to stay invisible because invisible felt safe. That ends now. The same mind that catalogues every subtle shift in a room, that reads subtext while others are still processing the text, that runs 5 moves ahead while everyone else is reacting. That mind, aimed with intention, is the most dangerous thing in any negotiation, any boardroom, any relationship. You've been carrying a loaded weapon and using it as a shield. Machiavelli didn't write for men who react. He wrote for men who decide, cold, deliberate, timed perfectly. That's what introverts were built for. The question is whether you're finally willing to use it. You already know someone in your life who does this naturally. Someone quiet who somehow always ends up ahead. What you're about to hear next explains exactly how they do it and why it looks effortless from the outside. Rule 3. They don't fear the man who shouts. They fear the man they cannot read. Think about every person in your life who made you genuinely uneasy. Not the aggressive ones, not the loud ones, the quiet ones. The ones who smiled without telling you what they were thinking, who responded to provocation with stillness, who when you pushed, didn't push back. They just looked at you. You know exactly who I'm talking about. That feeling they produced in you, that slight recalibration, that instinct to choose your words more carefully around them. That's not aggression. That's not dominance in the traditional sense. That's the power of the unreadable man. And it's available to you right now. Machiavelli understood that fear isn't produced by aggression. Aggression tells people what you're feeling and gives them something to prepare for. Real psychological weight, the kind that makes people hesitate and recalculate, comes from the man nobody can map. When they can't predict you, they can't prepare for you. Here's what that means practically. Stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned that access. Stop softening your silences with nervous filler. Stop nodding along when you disagree just to keep the temperature low. Not because you should be cold, because your habit of over-explaining, over-clarifying, over-accommodating is handing people a map of your interior. And maps are how people navigate around you. Give them nothing. Let the silence sit. Let them fill it. Watch what they hand you when they do. The man who controls what others know about him controls every room he enters without raising his voice once. Most men try to fix this by getting louder. Here's why that move always backfires. And what Machiavelli said the truly powerful man does instead. It's the opposite of what you'd expect. Rule 4. You were never meant to perform power. You were meant to hold it. Here's the lie at the center of every leadership seminar, every networking event, every piece of advice you've ever received about putting yourself out there. Visibility equals power. It doesn't. Think about the last time you watched someone get promoted who you knew was less capable than you, less precise, less aware of what was actually happening in the room. But they were loud about it. They were visible. They performed competence while you quietly exercised it. And you told yourself the wrong story about that moment. You told yourself you lost. You didn't lose. You were playing the wrong game entirely. And nobody told you there was a different one. Visibility equals exposure. And exposure, real exposure, the kind where everyone can see your next move, is exactly how powerful men get outmaneuvered. Machiavelli spent his life watching rulers destroy themselves by performing strength instead of exercising it. Public displays, grand gestures, the constant need to be seen as powerful in real time. And he watched quieter men who kept their strategies private, their movements invisible, their intentions unreadable, outlast every single one of them. Keep your output public, your mechanics private. He wrote that 500 years ago. In today's world, where everyone is broadcasting every thought, every strategy, every next move in real time. It has never been more relevant. You don't need to perform. You don't crave the spotlight. You're not wired for the validation loop of constant visibility. You've been treating that as a weakness because the loud world told you it was. It's not. It's the exact advantage Machiavelli built his entire philosophy around. While they're broadcasting, you're observing. While they're announcing, you're positioning. While they're building an audience of people who know exactly what they're planning, you're building outcomes nobody saw coming. The most dangerous move on any board is the one nobody sees until it's already been made. And this is where it gets interesting, because there's a specific moment, one that every introvert has experienced and never knew how to use. That is worth more than any performance, any credential, any room you've ever tried to own by being loud. That's next. Rule 5. The world doesn't owe you recognition, but it will fear what it cannot explain. You've done this. I know you have. You walked into a situation fully prepared. You understood it at a level nobody else in the room did. You saw the angles, the risks, the outcome before it played out. And instead of letting that sit, instead of letting the weight of what you knew change the temperature of the room, you gave it away. You explained it, all of it, because you needed them to see that you saw it. And the moment you explained it, the power left the room with the words. That's the need I'm talking about, the need to be understood, and it has been quietly dismantling you every time you've given into it. The moment you need to be understood, you start explaining. The moment you start explaining, you've handed over control of how you're perceived. You've given them the map, and now they know how to move around you. Machiavelli was ruthless on this point. Everyone sees what you appear to be, but few experience what you really are. And the wise man builds his power in that gap. Not by being fake, by being strategic about what he reveals. And when. Here's what that looks like in practice. Next time you're in a room and you see something nobody else sees, sit on it. Let the silence hold it. Watch how the room moves without your input. Watch who looks at you when the answer doesn't come. Watch who starts to wonder what you're thinking. That wondering, that's the beginning of influence. You don't need to be understood to be powerful. You need to be felt. The man they can't quite figure out is the man they cannot stop thinking about. What I'm about to tell you in the final section is the part most people never reach. It's the reason Machiavelli himself was feared by the most powerful men in Europe. Not for what he did, but for what he understood. And it applies to you directly. Everything in this video points to the same place. You were not built wrong. You were not dealt a bad hand. The world's obsession with loudness, performance, and visibility was never about what actually produces power. It was about what's easy to sell to men who confuse noise with strength. Machiavelli, the most misunderstood strategist in human history, was one of you. He sat in the margins, he observed, he was dismissed, exiled, and tortured by the powerful men he'd spent his life studying. And then he wrote a book that every single one of those powerful men read in secret for the next 500 years. That's the move. Not the loud man's move. Not the performer's move. The quiet man's move. Build something so precise, so deeply understood, so rooted in how power actually works, that the men who dismissed you end up depending on what you built. Here's the thing, nobody in your life has said to you plainly enough. The world didn't punish you because you were weak. It punished you because quiet men who pay attention are the most dangerous variable in any system. And systems, institutions, hierarchies, social structures, survive by making their most dangerous variables believe they're the least important ones. They needed you small. You don't have to stay that way. That room, the one I asked you to think about at the start, the one where someone talked over you. You know what you should have done now. You know what the quiet man does. He doesn't react. He doesn't explain. He waits. He accumulates. And then he moves once, precisely, when no one is prepared for it. That's not a strategy you have to learn. That's who you already are. Your silence was never the problem. Your silence was always the point. The only question left is whether you're finally ready to use it on purpose. Subscribe, and don't tell anyone why.